I played Red Dead Redemption 2 for the first time in 2025. Now, this game was my first proper RPG experience. And not only did this game affect the way I make content, it affected the way I play games. Now, Red Dead Redemption 2 has become my all-time favorite game. So get cozy, get yourself a cup of tea, and let's talk about the game that changed me. Now, this game is absolutely huge, and if I was to talk about everything, we would be here for hours, so I've whittled it down to 5 key topics. I'm going to start by talking about my experience through my first ever playthrough, my experience of the story and the gameplay. I'm then going to talk about my Arthur and my experience playing as Arthur, which will lead into talking about the ending and my reaction to that. I'll then touch on the epilogue because I did also play that and I think it's very important to talk about this. And then I'll finish with some honorable mentions / my favorite side quests. So as I said, this was my first experience playing a story game, and I started off playing this game in my eyes wrong. And I know you can say there is no way to play the game, but I was streaming all of my playthroughs, and as someone who had gone from streaming shooter games such as Valorant to really changing up my niche to story games, I was kind of nervous about my viewers not being interested. So I felt a lot of pressure to really keep my viewers engaged and to talk to them like all the time, including during cutscenes. Now, I don't mind talking over cutscenes as long as it's about the cutscene. So I'll often comment on the cutscene as it's happening. But what I was doing is I was actually engaging with my chat and just missing a lot of information from these cutscenes. I quickly realized that this is not how I wanted to play the game. I actually went back and I watched all of the cutscenes to make sure I hadn't missed any information. And I was quite good at multitasking. I hadn't really missed anything. However, at some point I did switch, and the way I play now is during a cutscene, I will completely ignore my chat and I will get back to them after the cutscene. Now, this brings me on to what I think the game did really well for new players, and that is Chapter 1. A lot of people complain about Chapter 1 being really slow and really long. I've heard that people couldn't even get through Chapter 1 because they got so bored. I was not bored. I was not bored for 1 second of Chapter 1. I thought it was a perfect way to introduce me not only to the rockstar way of playing a story game, but also story games in general. As I said, story games were quite foreign territory for me, so getting used to the controls and just kind of how the game plays out, I think was really important to have Chapter 1 and have that slow learning journey. I'm also not used to being taught how to play a game by playing the game. Obviously, I play Valorant, where you go and do a tutorial and you learn the controls in the tutorial and then you just play. Whereas with the story game, they put in missions like the one where we learn Deadeye, and it teaches you how to use different things as you go. For someone who kind of struggles to remember a lot of information in one go, I thought this was absolutely perfect. However, my one negative is I don't feel like we were ever fully taught how to look after horses. I didn't realize until my horse was at the most underweight it could be that you actually had to feed the horse. I also didn't realize that you had to be level 1 bonding with a horse for it to be your horse. I found that out the hard way when I got Buell and I tried to take him home by fast traveling, and I appeared on a different horse. I went back and I couldn't find Buell, so I spent a whole 5 minutes with that horse and then lost him. I think the game would have benefited from a story mission or even just a side mission where we're taken to a ranch and we're taught properly how to look after our horse. A lot like how in the epilogue, we are taught how to ranch. So by Chapter 3, I was very settled into the game and I was loving life. I still have fond memories of just being in Chapter 3 and we had no problems. We were very settled. We were healthy. We were in a lovely location. It wasn't too cold. It wasn't too hot. I liked the nearby town. Everything was just perfect. It is my favorite chapter, and I'm wanting to go back and replay chapters 1 and 2 just to get into Chapter 3 and stay there. This chapter is also where the story really kicks in. And like I said, I think the game does a good job of teaching you how to play the game. And then by Chapter 3, you are ready. You understand what you're doing. You understand how everything works. You understand how to look after your camp, look after yourself, earn money, hunt, fight, you know everything. And then they really turn it up a notch with the story, particularly the Greys and the Braithwaite stuff. Absolutely love that story. It felt like, you know, a bit of a Romeo and Juliet story, but we were kind of getting involved and causing some issues on both sides. I really liked it. I thought it was really fun. At the end of chapter 3, we get to what is arguably one of the best story missions in the entire game, and that is Blood Feuds Ancient and Modern, where we go to the Braithwaite Manor and we kill all of Catherine Braithwaite's sons, leaving her with absolutely nothing. And it sounds really brutal, and honestly, it is. I just loved how like cinematic this mission was, where we're like riding in down the pathway and it's lined with the trees and it's kind of like late at night and you've just got the big house. Like, oh, I just want to live through chapter 3 again and again. I can't express how much I love chapter 3. I also think this mission is really where things heat up and the gang get into a lot of bother. Like, yes, they've been in bother before, but this is like a next level of cruel. It's a next level of, you know, danger. They're messing with these really rich people, both the Greys and the Braithwaites. They're powerful people and we're messing with them both. So that's where things start to go off the rails. And I just love that, like, in my mind, this is where it all starts. Now, before I want to go any further talking about the story, because we're going to get too close to the ending, I want to talk about my Arthur and my experience playing as Arthur. Every single player has their Arthur. Now, for me, I was Arthur. When I play games, I do tend to get quite immersed, but this was a different level of immersion for me. When I first started playing the game, I was, you know, controlling a character, and this shows in the way I play. I didn't really care about honor so much. I just thought, let's choose whatever sounds like the funnest option at the time, and whatever my honor will be. I'm not bothered. By chapter 3, I'd really formed this like close bond and connection with my Arthur to the point where I was Arthur. I was no longer controlling the character, like I was the character. And I think this is due to all of the side missions and, you know, kind of main story missions, but they're not the main story, if you know what I mean. Those missions where you go off with a different character, like when we go and spend a drunken night with Lenny, we have that laddie kind of friend bond. And then we also have our missions with Sadie and the other girls. We get to see him form relationships around the camp as well. All of those relationships kind of take it away from you controlling a character going through a story to you being in the story. And that's something that I don't see a lot of other games doing. Before you come at me, I haven't played loads of games, so maybe there are other games like this. If so, please suggest them to me, because I want to play those games. I love being that immersed that, like, in my mind, I am the character. This was showed when Arthur was saying things, I would react out loud using I am this. That happened to me. People would say, no, it didn't happen to you. It happened to Arthur. But to me, I was Arthur. So this is important in the way that I responded to things. So I'm going to talk about when Arthur got sick. The way Arthur got sick is such a sad story when you really think about it. He was going and collecting the debts for Strauss, and he saw this vulnerable, poor man and his family, and that just kind of sparked something in him, and he didn't want to kill this man. He didn't want to harm him. He didn't want to make his life worse, even though that's what he had to do. That's his job, his role. That's what he was sent there to do. His kindness is what got him sick. If he'd have just turned up and popped a bullet in his head, or even ended the conversation sooner, turned it violent sooner, that guy wouldn't have coughed in his face and he wouldn't have caught TB. When I was playing, I knew that I had caught TB because I'm not stupid. However, my Arthur didn't know that. I even worried about going back into camp, but then I was told that no, you can go to camp, you're not going to spread it. So I knew before my Arthur did. And then when he found out, it was so heartbreaking just seeing him realize that he doesn't have all the time in the world left. he's going to die at some point, and it's probably not going to be this crazy cowboy death that he was expecting. It's going to just be he slowly gets weaker and weaker until he wastes away. That was really hard. So once Arthur finds out he's ill, he really starts kind of putting things into perspective for himself, thinking about the way he acts, the way he treats people, his morals. And whether you're playing high honor or low honor, that's when your Arthur really kind of thinks, what do I want to do with my life? And I felt that too. And I was like, I need to be high honor. I need to do good things with the time I have left. And it's really sweet to go on that journey with your Arthur, or for me, go on that journey myself. And it kind of puts things in real life into perspective for you as well, which I thought was crazy, the fact that like a video game could have such a real world impact on me. But now you know my relationship with Arthur, I think it's time to talk about the ending. So we have this series of events that kind of build up through chapters 4 to chapter 6. Dutch is slowly losing the plot, and we go from like the naivety we have in chapter 1 of we are following this leader and we're just being a good boy, to kind of clocking on that Dutch doesn't have it all figured out like we all thought he did. He's going a bit crazy, a bit power hungry. He's using the Native Americans for his own gain, and he's kind of manipulating them. He's also manipulating the gang, and he's letting us down. He keeps saying one more score, and he's letting us down time and time again. So we've got tensions rising there, and then there's just deaths left, right, and center, creating a weaker gang because we've got less members. And also it's letting the bad guys shine brighter. Tensions really hit an all-time high when we find out that there is a rat and Molly gets the blame. Now, obviously we know Molly's not the rat, but for some reason she says that she is and gets killed for it. Oh, I could make a whole video about Molly. Like, it breaks my heart the way she was treated. But just seeing how much Dutch did not care about his girlfriend, and it really makes you see this man as an evil, horrible man that only wants something if it directly benefits him. Now, in one of the last missions, Our Best Selves, we see John fall, and I knew he wasn't dead. I don't know if you're supposed to know he wasn't dead, but I know that there is an epilogue coming, and I know that you play as John in the epilogue. I also know Red Dead Redemption 1 exists, so I guess you are supposed to know that he's not dead, but obviously my Arthur didn't know that he wasn't dead, and Dutch didn't want to go back for him. Dutch didn't want to try. He was like, nah, he's gone. So that creates the divide, and Arthur chooses the right side. He chooses the side to go and help the people that actually still care about him. He helps John, Abigail, Jack. He helps the ones that need helping. We find out that Micah is the rat, and we've got to go after him. And I'm like, finally, because Micah, I hated him since the start. And when I found out that he had been the rat since Guama, I was shocked. Because what do you mean he'd been the rat since Guamo? Don't you mean since chapter 1? How? How has Micah been causing us issues this entire time, but he's only been a rat for half the game? Like, to me, something wasn't adding up, and I really thought that day 1 Micah was a rat. So we go after Micah. This is where things really start going wrong. My horse gets shot, my baby that I have been bonded with for like half of the game. Now, I played the entire game with only 2 horses. I had the first horse that you get given in the tutorial, and I named him Sparkles, and I kept Sparkles until chapter 4. And in chapter 4, I got ambushed and I died. I'd never been ambushed before, and I wasn't ready for it, and I died. I tried to reload the save, and just some random horse spawned, and it wasn't my horse. It wasn't a horse I owned. So I went and bought another horse, not Sparkles. And not Sparkles was never going to replace Sparkles. Oh, but he did. And then we had an even stronger bond than me and Sparkles did. I mean, we both had level 4 bonding, but just like on a personal level, I was more connected to not Sparkles. So when my horse died, oh my gosh, it broke my heart, and I started crying. I saw my Arthur and how much he was affected by this loss, and I was also affected by the loss. I had to try and keep it together because we were in the middle of this intense end battle scene. We were being chased by the Pinkertons while we were still trying to get Micah, and yeah, I was just trying to hold it together. And that was when we have to make the decision, do we go and help John or go back for the money? Now, at this point, it was not even a question. Of course, I was helping John. I choose to help John and I hit max honor. I got the achievement. I'm still like crying at this point and I'm like trying to keep it together. I'm like, we must go on. So we help John. And then we have the last fight with Micah. Now, this fight really, really angered me. We're on top of the mountain and we're pushing each other. As Arthur, I'm really struggling because, you know, I got my tuberculosis. I'm pretty weak at this point. But we're on the edge of a cliff. Just push him off. And Micah also wasn't pushing me off. I knew I was going to die. Let's be honest. If you're playing this and you don't think you're going to die at this point, who are you kidding? I expect to get pushed off the cliff by Micah. And it just doesn't happen. We are like tussling for ages, absolutely ages. And then Dutch appears. And I'm like, Dutch, he's a rat. He was the rat all along. It's him. You've got the opportunity. Let's go. And he does nothing. He just walks off. Micah walks off. Arthur is left there just to die on the mountain. I did not shed a single tear, and even going back, I stand by this because how in that situation can I sit there and cry over the loss of Arthur? Remember, when I'm playing, I am Arthur, and I am so angry that I have been left to die after everything I have done for this gang. All the times I've gone to the ledger and it's just Arthur, 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 Arthur. Every time I have done errands for Strauss, for Dutch, for Micah. I've got Micah out of prison. I've helped Dutch get out of numerous sticky situations. I have been the backbone of this freaking gang. And this is how I am repaid. So I'm not sad. No, I'm just angry. Still, to this day, I get comments saying that I didn't play the game properly because I didn't cry. I still stand by that. I think if I go and play it again, I'm still not going to cry because the ending doesn't make me sad. It makes me angry. Now, if you haven't clicked off after finding out that I'm a heartless bitch and didn't cry, we'll talk about the epilogue. So I think the epilogue gets bad rep. After what we've just been through, we need that change of pace. We need to slow it down and just live the ranching lifestyle. Now, it was hard to play as John because we just played as Arthur. I'd spent about 70 hours playing with my Arthur and I'd really come to believe that I was this character and, you know, I dressed him in all the things that I wanted him to wear and I looked after him. And then he's gone. I'm mourning the loss of my Arthur and then I have to play as John. And he wasn't one of my favourite characters. You know, he's just a plain character. I guess that's why he's a good character to play because, you know, you can add your own personality to him. But he was just a bit dead. It actually made me not want to play Red Dead Redemption 1. I still did. And if you've seen my Red Dead Redemption 1 review, you'll know that I did grow to like John and I actually really enjoyed the story in the end. Just a few honourable mentions. Number one, I want to talk about Sadie Adler. My girl, I love her so much. She is such an amazing character. I think maybe this is because like I'm a woman and I like seeing badass women in video games that, you know, aren't overly sexualized, but I just think her character was amazing. She was strong, she was sassy. I loved her voice lines. I loved her voice actor. Some of her voice lines and the way she talks, like the get your own damn drink, like, I love it. I would have absolutely loved playing an epilogue as her, but I kind of understand why we got John because there's more to make a story of. But yeah, I really like that Rockstar had a strong female character that wasn't just used as someone's girlfriend or a love interest. I really liked the character of Sadie and I'd love to see more. Now, one of the side quests that I absolutely loved was the one with the widow. This was where we found a widow in a cabin in the woods and she was really struggling to make it on her own after her husband had passed. And Arthur helps her out. She teaches her how to shoot, how to hunt, how to look after herself. I love this storyline because you get to just escape every now and again and go to almost like a different world where you're not this cowboy in a gang. You're just a friend living a peaceful, off the grid lifestyle. I know everything is off the grid in the sense of away from his normal life. I found the missions really peaceful and a great change of pace, similar to the Veteran, which I also loved. This was kind of the same as the previous quest, however, it was different. It was more of like a friend that Arthur could relate to. They sat for hours and they chatted. They fished together, they hunted together. It was just, when Arthur had some free time, he'd pop and see his friend. That whole storyline was like a mini game in itself because, we had the fishing, the hunting, and then the death. How could they do this? They just took him away from us. I was very shocked at the death of the Veteran, but I was excited that I got to keep Buell for all of 5 minutes until I lost him. So I did feel like I let the old Veteran down, and when I play the game again, I will make sure to look after Buell and keep him and get to level 4 bonding, and he will be my horse, and I will make up my first playthrough. Obviously, there is so much more that I could talk about, but this video would just keep going on and on and on. So if there's any specific questions you want to ask me, let me know in the comments and I'll try and get back to you all. If you did like this video, please like and subscribe and let me know what game you think I'd enjoy.